Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. Today I am joined with a very special guest. You want to introduce yourself?
Right, okay. Hi, I'm Yan Shen. I am a rising third year in Oxford doing law.
Okay, so today we're going to be talking about what is probably the title of the video, which is how I got my Oxford offer. And so, as obviously you can tell, Yan Shen also got his Oxford offer, but for a different course of study. We will be talking about first how we first found our interest in our different courses of study, why we chose Oxford, and also how we applied and successfully got our places there.
So, I'm Yan Shen, as mentioned. I am doing law at Oxford. I do like law quite a lot, and most of my extracurricular activities are centered around law. I do a lot of mooting. I do quite a bit. I'm in Oxford Lawyers Without Borders that deals with rule of law issues. But aside from that, probably boring stuff to most of you. I do play the trumpet, and I play in quite a few college orchestras around Oxford, and I play for the Oxford Chorus as well. I used to row as a cox, but I stopped doing that after a term when I realized you had to wake up at 5 a.m. and 5 a.m. in winters aren't very warm. It's not comfortable. So I stopped rowing. And I decided to do more music instead of more rowing. So
okay, then maybe a little bit about myself, since funny enough, my subscribers barely know much about me apart from the fact that I have dyed purple hair right in front of them before.
That's all I know about you.
Yeah, you see, that's the thing that most people only know about me. So personally, I have always really liked history, and funny enough, I decided that I wanted to study history at Oxford when I was 15, which is quite a young age to decide these things. And honestly speaking, it wasn't really for the most right reasons at the time either. I think it was mostly because everyone going to Oxford always seemed to really put together and always seemed to be such go-getters. And obviously I really liked history at the time, so that was just my justification of why I wanted to go to Oxford and study history then. But I think over the years I've had a lot of experience both studying history and being around semblances of history. I did a lot of museum work at a time. So I was guiding at the National Museum and the Peranakan Museum. And then, as you guys know, I also did a H3 that explored a little bit about Middle Eastern history, which I was super into at the time. Still am, actually. So that's me, and I don't really think I have any other interests apart from maybe Model UN, which, yes, both Yan Shen and I were part of. Yeah, and we kind of met through there as well, so...
Oh wait, I'm supposed to introduce why I like law and why I'm studying law at Oxford, right? Yeah,
sure.
About that. Sure. Right, okay, so I'm interested in law. I was interested in law at that time. I still am, but for different reasons. So because I started as a nosy parker, I like to know what's going on behind the reps. I like to know what juicy bits of info you have on people's life. So I did an internship. I actually initially started out wanting to do physics, but I did a 9-month attachment program and realized that it's quite exploitative in academia. So I was like, not for me. And I mean, law's quite exploitative as well, but that's another topic for another day. But I did an internship at a law firm in Singapore, and at that time we were covering a corruption case between the government of Singapore and the Prime Minister of Papua New Guinea. I mean, the government was charging the Prime Minister and his associates. And it was the former Prime Minister of Papua New Guinea, not the current one. So it was really interesting digging up all the secret info on the Prime Minister's, the former Prime Minister's life, and all the dirty stuff going on underneath the wraps. And I was really interested. I really loved the tea. And I mean, I actually recall...
As someone who's doing history, it's also because I love the tea.
Yeah, exactly. It's all about the tea. So I actually recall speaking with the former Lord Chancellor in the UK, Lord Falconer, and he asked me why law, and I told him because I'm a nosy parker. I love to know what's going on behind the scenes on what on everyone's lives. And he was like, that's a really good reason, probably one of the best I've heard today. So that's a legit reason. And I think that's the main reason. But I think a secondary reason is that I have a bit of I guess I made a connection with it after doing model UNs, because in model UNs I wouldn't say that you'll be really involved with like law and that you really know international law, you really know in human rights law, but I mean you think you know what it is, but it actually isn't. I mean I thought I knew what that was, and I was like, well, this is interesting, I'll do it. So that's why. But I think today I'll if I were to do the interview again, I'll do it for different reasons, because one huge reason why I like law is because of the type of reasoning involved. You're constantly trying to dig up past cases and draw analogies to past cases when you're faced with certain facts. And you also do quite a lot of policy-based reasoning, not just about what the law is, but rather what the law should be. So the tools you use, the analytical tools you use, it is quite broad. You have quite a huge toolbox, and I think that's really interesting, and I like doing law for that reason.
Okay, the next thing would be about why Oxford. So I think I've more or less answered that question, because for me, going to Oxford has had many different like implications from when I was like 15 and kind of like idolizing the people who I knew who had graduated from Oxford or who were in Oxford, and then to later on when I was actually in the process of applying and tried to like find out a lot more of like what the Oxford experience was like, and then to finally me getting the offer and then realizing what implications that has on myself. So maybe I'd just like to hear from like you and why Oxford, because there's also Cambridge.
I know. Okay, so I knew that I wanted to go to Oxford. Either Cambridge or Oxford is fine. I had a slight preference for Cambridge at the start. But when I found out that... Don't we all? No, I was just kidding. But when I found out that you had to do a separate set of examinations for Cambridge if you want to apply for law, that's not the LNET. I realized that it's not convenient for me to do 2 examinations at once. I might as well just do the LNET and apply to Oxford because it's convenient. Further, the interview center for Oxford is a lot closer to my house, so I went to Oxford. So I applied for Oxford because it's a lot more convenient for me. But I think aside from those rather frivolous reasons, what I realized while doing my degree at Oxford is that because in Oxford you have your examinations in your 3rd year, whereas in Cambridge law you have your examinations every single year. So what this means is that you are able to get in touch with various bits of law before you do your final examinations. And the thing about law is that everything is interconnected. You might think that tort law and administrative law have nothing in common, but in fact they do. You address issues like should the government be required to pay out to claimants if they've suffered injury due to government misadministration, stuff like that. Contract law and torts are intertwined. Contracts, land and equity, they are also very intertwined. So I think it's a lot better for you to know a bit of everything. It's a lot better for you to know everything there is to know about private law or even public law before you sit your examinations, because that gives you a better overview of what law is. It makes your answer a bit more wholesome, a bit more holistic.
Reel this back a little bit and go into, first off, like what are the different colleges, and second of all, like what is this whole pooling system all about? Because for people who are not familiar with places like Oxford and Cambridge, like first of all, a lot of people don't even know that Oxford and Cambridge have different colleges. Like everyone just thinks that they're like any other university which just has one common compound, like yeah. And so basically when a lot of us like talk about different colleges and different like kinds of interviews because of the different colleges, yeah, it might be a bit confusing if you don't understand like the college system. But basically, I can't even remember how many colleges there are, but there's like
30 or 40, I think.
Like
there'll be
38 or something like that.
9, I think that's a new one.
Oh, you should explain this because you've already like had 2 years in it. So yeah, but how like the college system works and how it like impacts your education actually.
Right. So basically, the college is essentially your university for the whole of 3 years, because for the most part you will be having lessons within your college, you will be living within your college compounds. Most of your friends will come from the same college as you are. You will have your meals in that single college. Basically, your affiliation to the university is through that college. You are a member of that college, and these are they're kind of both academic jurisdiction and physical jurisdictions, in the sense that they are walled off from each other. Sometimes during certain parts of the day, members of it, or only members of that certain college can access that college, and academically, basically the people in charge of you will be from the college. You will be learning. Your tutors will be mostly from that college, unless that college has run out of tutors, or like they've decided to swap tutors or something. You will, however, have your lectures, I think, as a year group within the university. So I think that's one of the few times where you will be in contact with the university. Otherwise, everything is kind of college-based. So I think that system is not really replicated elsewhere, and certainly there are certain inequalities between colleges, because sometimes a college might have a specialist on this specific topic, and then and in other colleges you might have a DPhil student teaching you the same topic, and obviously the ideas coming up from a DPhil student and a specialist are quite the standard may vary. But I think as a whole, the very baseline is that it doesn't deviate far. Like the deviation between colleges isn't too great. It doesn't really actually matter academically which college you're from. Perhaps there are stereotypes, of course, of each college. As with everything else, there are stereotypes for everything. So, for example, Oriel is seen as a really right-wing college. Wardham is seen as quite a left-wing college. Us at Mansfield, we are seen as kind of like left-wing-ish college as well, which is quite cool actually, because we have the Centre of Human Rights in our college, which is why I applied in the first place, because I was interested in that. So and Merton is full of muggers and stuff like that. So
and it kind of like does apply, right? Because you do see things like there being like more functions of a certain type in certain colleges. Like I've heard that in St. Anne's, they definitely have like a lot of party culture, and so there are like entertainment reps.
Yes, correct.
The entertainment reps are like really ons and really like up to date on like what the students want. They're super into like the welfare of their students and like party going culture and all that.
I think it's the culture of the college which you should be concerned with, and I think culture is something that evolves over time. Like what might be the culture today might be different tomorrow, or for example a few years in the future. So if you're watching this video maybe next year or a few years in the future, what we have said might change.
Yeah, so like for example, why I chose Queen's was because I knew that it had a very strong like arts culture, arts appreciation culture. Like they do have a theatre and all that, and their student body is like very into, I think, like appreciation of say theatre, of film, etc., which I personally really love as a hobby. And another thing is that Queen's is also pretty like conservative and a little bit traditional, which I think coming from a bit of a traditional-esque.
To be honest, I don't really see the like I think most colleges are more similar than different.
Yeah.
So I
don't. It's not really that big a deal.
It's not really that big of a deal. I think as long as you just stay true to yourself, I think you'd be able to thrive your own way.
To thine own self be true, indeed. Yeah. Also, I guess if you're really thinking about this from a very pragmatic perspective, you can also try to like apply for, first of all, the Jardine colleges, so that you can get that good scholarship.
But they are very oversubscribed though, Jardine colleges.
So Queen's, for example, is a Jardine college.
Yeah, they are very oversubscribed. So if you're looking to enter the Oxford, well, I wouldn't say easily, but if you're looking for a less oversubscribed college, perhaps try something else.
Yeah, but if you want to like go for the very well-funded colleges with generous alumni and Jardine scholarships, so the Jardine scholarship colleges are Queen's, Trinity, I think, was it like Exeter?
Exeter as well.
Balliol?
I can't remember. Oriel, I think. Oriel might be one of them.
Okay, find it out yourself.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, so the Jardine Matheson Scholarship is for scholars in the Southeast Asian region. And although I didn't get it, I think it was quite a surprise for me to learn that such a scholarship was in existence, because all I knew about Queen's at the time was just like what I just said. And I didn't know that such a scholarship was even in existence until the administrative team like emailed me to tell me that I could apply for it. So that was fun, and it would have been nice to know that from the start, and then kind of factor that into my decision making. But as it is, I don't regret my decision. A lot of people like talk about how they're actually pulled from like one or more colleges. Like, so some people, they put open on their college preference in their application, or they put a certain college, and then in the end they'll get pulled to this common pool of people that other colleges will interview, and if they find that you're a right fit, then they'll take you, and if not, you could either get pulled or rejected. So yeah, so I know like one or two people who got into the college, into a different college of their initial choice after getting pulled initially, and now they really really like the college that they're in.
I think that's the case for most people actually.
Yeah. Because I think a problem also is that you don't really know that much about the college until you're in it, and sometimes like the people that are interviewing you will be like, oh, this person is actually a really good fit for like Oxford, but not this college. I don't think it would be very likely for you, say, to apply open and then get pulled into a very oversubscribed college.
But that happens actually. My friend was pulled. She applied to a smaller college and was pulled to Trinity.
Okay,
yeah.
Okay.
The thing with pooling is that it can work in, I think, different ways. I think sometimes a candidate will be snapped up immediately by another college, and you can be snapped up by more than one college for interviews. So the thing is, they're trying to find the best fit for you within Oxford. So actually, don't worry about pooling at all. It doesn't actually matter to you. What matters is that you've gotten into Oxford and gotten into a college that suits you best. So don't worry about it. Don't think about it.
Yeah. So I think some people can get like very set on a certain college, like especially if they have seniors who came from a certain college and they're like, yes, I've heard so much about this place, I want this way of life, I want to be with my seniors, etc. etc. But it is what it is, and it's for a good reason.
Yeah, I think you're going overseas anyway. You're going into this rather foreign place, so I think it might be nice for you to start from scratch. For you to get to learn new people, get to learn new things. I think that might be a bit more fruitful.
So let's move on to the first stage of applications, which is basically the UCAS application that involves your personal statement or your details. And for me, it also involved my predicted grades, because at the time I was applying on a conditional basis. So, okay, I think I can just start first by saying that a lot of my personal statement revolved around my prior experience and what I learned from it, how it shaped my worldview. So how my time spent with a lot of historical analysis and my work at the museum had shaped how I viewed the world in general, how I looked at other instances of history. For example, how the study of war has shaped the knowledge of modern day current affairs. And then I also tied in stuff relating to my ongoing research about the Arab-Israeli conflict. So I was also told by someone that Oxford is looking for nerds. So to a very large extent, I just tried to channel like a lot of my nerdy side, and I think perhaps that paid off. But at the same time, I don't think that Oxford places a lot of emphasis on your UCAS personal statement. So yeah, I would be very careful to say that like anything that I hinted at resulted in an offer.
Yeah, I think Oxford doesn't really place that much emphasis, because I'm told by certain tutors doing admissions that they actually do only read your UCAS statements on the day, like right before the interview. So they don't really actually put that much emphasis on the UCAS statement. But to get through the interview stage, you must have the required grades to get there. I'm not sure what the requirements are right now, but you do have. I mean, those can be found on the websites of the respective courses, so that's not a huge matter. But you have to get the required grades to be able to get an interview. And I
think it's usually like 3 H2As
for
the Singapore context. Yeah, so it would be 3 H2As, and as much as possible just A's in everything. But the UK only really cares about H2s, so that's good for if you kind of mess up your H1s.
But don't mess up H1s.
Yeah, but don't do that, because you'll kind of screw up your scholarships.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. But if you are doing a subject that requires an external examination like the LDET, for example, they will take in your LNET grades into consideration.
Yeah.
And the thing, I'll just talk about law for now. Is that okay?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So the thing about law is that there's two parts to LNET. One is the MCQ part, and the other is the essay part. For the other schools, I am told that not much emphasis is placed on the essay part. People will just place emphasis on the MCQ bit. But for Oxford, they actually get the tutors to mark the essay bits, and the essay bits are actually very important. Sometimes it determines whether you get an interview or not, and sometimes even after the interview stage, they might look back at the essay and decide whether to accept you. I mean, that's a factor that's taken into consideration. I'm not saying that that's the only factor taken in. I'm saying that that's one of the factors taken in after the interview stage. So evidently for Oxford, the essay is really important. Do place more emphasis on the essay for quite a bit. But I would say that it's not very difficult to write a good essay as long as you have decent GP skills, which you should have if you are planning to apply for law. That shouldn't be much of a problem.
Okay, so actually going a little bit more into how exactly each stage of the process goes. So first of all, the UCAS application obviously entails you creating a UCAS account and then submitting all your personal details, submitting your predicted grades if need be, as well as your personal statement by a certain date. And I think every year it's 15th October. So if you're applying this year, go and hit there pretty soon because time is ticking. And the second thing is that around the same time, depending on which degree course you're applying for, you should be sitting for a certain test. So for me, it was the history aptitude test. For Yan Shen and for everyone who's doing law and wants to apply to UK, it is LNET. LNET.
No one calls it LNET.
And a non-law student calls it LNET. So like you know the operation the Congo like Lenot.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So you can register to take the test, whichever test it is, via this online website called like, I think it's like the Language and Translation Center or something like that in Singapore. Okay, I'll drop a link down below where you can register for the test and take it. It costs about $180 to register for it.
Really?
Yeah, my mom had to. Okay, because I applied independently and you applied to a school.
Oh no,
so
I applied independently.
Oh really?
Yeah, I actually applied twice. The first time I failed, and the second time I succeeded. I can talk about the differences.
Okay. Wow, that's really great.
Yeah.
Okay, so for me it was all very like self-driven. Like I had to go and find out all this information by myself, and then my mom, I remember one night like drove out to find an AXS machine to like pay the $180 to take the test, which felt a little bit bad because I didn't know at the time whether or not like my application was already going well or not.
It's cheaper for law though. I didn't remember paying.
Is it?
It's a lot cheaper.
Okay.
Yeah.
So other common degree courses that might require you to take tests would probably be stuff like medicine or bio, because you might take BMAT, which is like the bio test. And then I know for econs and finances,
there's some reasoning tests.
Yeah, there's another test. So basically, if you take any of the above subjects that we've mentioned or anything like that, you might want to check it out, or if anything, just check out on the website whether or not you need to take a test. So actually, I brought out my file of like the practices that I did for the HAT. That's because I thought it would be useful to like go through how we both like prepared for HAT and LNET. LNET in our times. So okay, so what I did is that I printed out all the question paper and the so-called model answer or the top mark bands from the website. So they do provide on the Oxford website a list of all the prior question papers, so from like 2016, 2017, 2018, and then also they do give like a very vague model answer, i.e. what they would like to see discussed. So what I did was that I tried to annotate and answer to each question. So each of them is basically an extract given either theoretically or from like some very esoteric field of study. Like they always choose ones that you will have no background knowledge entering into. And that's the point, because you're not supposed to bring in any contextual knowledge, you're just supposed to analyze it for what it is. So common things that they would want you to discuss would probably be like the value of gender, the like political hierarchy and structures of the time. So I do remember that what was the question in my time was a letter from some like Sri Lankan governor to another governor, or some kind of law or something like that, and we had to infer like the societal setting and the political like the political status quo of the time. Yeah, that's basically what HAT is about. Like just making conclusions about society and political structures and leadership. Yeah. If you guys want, I can do a more detailed video about that next time, but if not, I'm going to take out the whole video talking about it, so let's move on to LNET.
Right, for LNET, as I have said, it is a test in 2 stages. The first stage is an MCQ test. It is essentially a reading comprehension test. And it wouldn't be on law. It most likely will have nothing to do with law. It probably has more to do with, I don't know, politics, technology, sports, anything, you can name it. Because the main point of the LNET is to find out whether you can infer things from the passage. Or
like common knowledge.
Yeah, just common knowledge, yeah. So the way to prepare for it, there are official LNET practice tests. I'm not sure there are multiple or a single one. I know there's a 2005 paper and the 2010 paper, but I don't think the 2005 paper has an answer sheet on it. But yeah, you can do them officially on the LNET website. However, these are, I found them to be insufficient because it kind of was foreign to me at that time because I was in the army for like 2 years. Reading was a foreign concept.
Yeah.
So I actually did the LSAT, the American version, the LSAT. I practiced quite a lot on the LSAT. I also went online to find out I also went to find whether there are knockoff LNET practice papers that I could find, and there are actually quite a lot of knockoff practice papers. I will not send them the link because as a law student you should be good at research and you should go find them yourself. If you are not good at research, this is a good practice. But yeah, but LSAT is readily available online. Although its style might be a bit different, but essentially it is testing the same skills. They are testing the same skills, so you can use LSAT for that. So there are quite a lot of resources on LNET LSATs actually online, so you can actually rely on that. The second part is the essay. Really just practice writing essays. I know some of you might be applying after JC or you're in the middle of army, and that might mean that your writing standards have deteriorated. So please keep that up. Not the deterioration part, but rather the high standards you previously had. Please keep that up and make sure that you're able to write a good essay within a short time span of 30 minutes. I think you can stick to your usual structure of PEL. I think that's a simpler structure. Maybe 2 points for 1 point against and a counter or something like that. As for the essay topics, they can be quite varied, but they are mainly on ethical issues. I think there's quite a lot of ethical issues in the essay because those things are more interesting to talk about. It's more of like it's mainly argumentative in nature basically. So it might not be legal in nature, but they are argumentative, ethical essay kind of things. So yeah.
Okay. So actually something that I want to add on to that is that when I was taking the HAT and when I practiced for it, like the skills I realized that were being used weren't the ones that were being taught in H2 history, for example. Because H2 history is very geared towards like skills like SBQ, and also like most of the essays are mostly drilled in as like regurgitation of content in very targeted manners.
Really?
Yeah, so a lot of how H2 history is being taught, at least for my JC, was that it was like, so these are certain question types, just keep those in mind and use these certain evaluative frameworks to always, copy paste onto this question. So history is just a very targeted subject when it's being taught in JC, but I think a subject that actually helps in terms of HAT would be Lit. If you take like H2 Lit, you learn how to write in very open-ended ways. So you look at any one extract, right, and then you just form your conclusions and you make it like a cohesive essay with different observations backed by different forms of analysis of like devices, language, etc., etc. And I think that was very important for HAT, which is a very like open-ended thing. It's not even source-based where you have to like compare and contrast across different sources and stuff like that. It's just write your analysis. And for someone who's very like entrenched into the whole JC history econs mindset where you just like memorize a certain framework or a certain evaluative structure and apply it to every scenario. Like, that doesn't work in this case. Yeah, so that's just something I would keep in mind. For me, this happened in around late October. I remember having to go to Hwa Chong in around like 30th, 31st October to take the test.
Unfortunate.
Yeah, and okay, something to note about that actually is that I was actually really early, like I was a whole half an hour early, and the queue outside the Hwa Chong gate was so long that it took me the whole half hour to get into the school, because they have an NRIC like scanner thing at the gate that everyone needs to scan to get through, and people were taking forever to get through the gate. So by the time I got to the exam venue, like it was just about to start, like, and I was panicking and everything because I just like didn't know where everything was. So pro tip, if you are going to like Hwa Chong for your test, just go early, because there's going to be like 2,000 people outside trying to get into Oxbridge. So
the competition is tough. Like,
yeah. And it didn't occur to me until I saw like that many people outside the gate like waiting, and especially like people from ACSI. I even saw Mackenzie and others actually. Yeah, I think they were taking BMAT. So another thing to note is also that like everyone who applies to Oxbridge will take the test in some way, shape or form. And yeah, so even if there are people who are not in any way, shape or form like competing directly with you for your course of choice or for your uni of choice, like, it can be very intimidating to just see like a huge crowd of people outside just like waiting to take the test with you.
LNet's a bit different actually. LNet, we do it in a separate building, like in the CBD area. And because like every other school in the UK except for Cambridge and a few others, they use LNet. So that means that there's going to be a few thousand or maybe even 100,000, I don't know how many people. There's going to be a shit ton of people applying for it.
Because a lot of people want to do law in Singapore.
Correct.
Especially in the UK.
That's right. So you're going to see a lot of people. And it's quite chill. The atmosphere is really, really chill. Like you have people leaving halfway because their slots up, like time's up for the slot, and you're gonna sit there for like 2 hours or something, and people just come in and out all the time.
Okay.
So it's quite
so another thing that I think you didn't have, but for me it was written work. So after and by the way, for HAT, I'm not sure about LNet, but HAT I have heard that you need to get a minimum score of 29 upon 50 to still be considered for the interview stage. So i.e. like if you get less than 29 upon 50, you'll get an email at the point saying that your application was rejected. So this did happen to a number of friends of mine. So just to keep that in mind and not like belittle the HAT.
Yeah,
so,
I think we have a minimum scores. I think 23 or 25 upon 41. But I think if you have above a 28, you should get an interview from.
Yeah. So next thing for me was written work. So I did get so-called like shortlisted past the test stage, which probably means that I got more than 29 upon 50. I'm guessing.
Congrats.
I'm guessing. And then I got an email from my college of choice, which is Queen's. And I was really excited about that because, like, I just never thought that Queen's would actually, give me a chance. I thought that they would pull me into the open pool and then, like, leave me out for some other college to take me.
Yeah, I got pulled when I first applied.
Yeah. Right, so I did think like, Queen's is like such an established college, there's no way they're going to like just let me actually apply. Yeah, so anyway, I just did it because why not? And I got an email saying that I needed to submit a written work of like something like within a number of pages, within a number of words or characters, and it's supposed to be a classroom work or a self-initiated work that either has been marked by a teacher and yet you haven't edited it yet, or it's just something that you did on your own and hasn't been marked yet. So essentially what they want from you is a very like raw, genuine piece of your everyday work, just a random like sample of what you do on a daily basis. So initially I wanted to like impress and I wanted to like show off how good a history student I was, so I wanted to submit my H3 piece de resistance, which is my H3 extended essay, and that was on the Arab-Israeli conflict, which I talked about in my personal statement. So I was like, perfect, they'll get to read it. But after talking to my teachers in charge, who said that because I had just submitted my extended essay and it was still in marking, it wouldn't be wise to use it for my application since I don't know, people could probably tell me that, you know, it didn't fit the guidelines, something, it was still being under marking, and it wasn't actually a representation of everyday work, which is the strongest argument. So, I mean, I agree with that, and of course I had to like find a different essay to use. But also to bear in mind, at around this time, I was in the thick of studying for A-levels. Like, this was just like 1 or 2 weeks before the A-level exam itself. It might have actually even been in the middle of some of my A-level papers. So just be prepared to like, you know, have to think on your feet about like how to fulfill these requirements, because prior to this, like, I didn't know that I would be shortlisted, that's one. I didn't know that the initial work that I was going to submit wouldn't be used. And so I had to come up with a new essay on the Asian financial crisis. It just so happens that I had been studying the Asian financial crisis thus far, and I had an essay on hand that I just submitted to a teacher. And so she very quickly marked it for me and gave comments, and then I submitted it to my college. Yeah. And this was actually the subject of my first interview. I had 2 interviews, so we'll talk a little bit more about that later. Do law students generally like submit any written work? No?
No, unless you're applying for BCL, but that's not probably the subject of this conversation, so yeah.
Okay, wait, hold on. What's like the difference between like a BCL and like a LLB?
Okay, so in Oxford, we are a bit special. Every single undergraduate degree is awarded a Bachelor of Arts. Even if you're studying physics, you still get a Bachelor of Arts. So I have a Bachelor. I'm going to get a Bachelor of Arts in jurisprudence, provided I don't fail my exams completely. Whereas that's right. Whereas other universities would award an LLB, but they're essentially the same thing, because a BA jurisprudence is a qualifying law degree, so you can become a lawyer. Essentially, become a lawyer, skip a few things after that. So it's a legit law degree. Whereas a BCL, it's a master's degree. It is actually the OG law degree. Like it is because like we started teaching English law in Oxford, and that was the original law degree. Every other LLB is just like a watered down version of that. It used to be the case that you had to do Roman law. We still have to do Roman law in BA jurisprudence, and that's fun actually. But the BCL is a lot more specialized. A lot of people become barristers after doing the BCL. It's usually for disputes related work, because it's a bit more intellectual in nature. I'm not saying that transactional work isn't intellectual in nature, but it's just geared towards that bit of law. And then you have your usual LLMs, your DPhils, and yeah.
There's a lot of acronyms here that I'm like.
Acronyms, yeah.
Okay, you know, we'll learn a little bit more when I
eventually switch to law.
Maybe, we shall see. But then I guess we'll move on to the biggest thing that a lot of people always ask about, which is interviews. So a lot of people have like a lot of myths about interviews. Like, a lot of people get ready questions like, why do you want to come to Oxford, or why do you want to study history?
Okay.
And for my experience, that wasn't the case at all. Like, I prepared answers to questions that were very general, like why Oxford, why Queen's, why history, and why choose me? But then it's like a very job interview mindset, which I feel like a lot of Singaporeans in particular are very geared towards. But for me, that wasn't the case. I did not get a single question about why Oxford, why the UK, why Queen's, no.
I did get it during my first interview though.
Okay.
I mean, I think I did okay on that, but I don't think like they're going to put a lot of emphasis, even if they ask you.
Yeah.
Like, I've heard that they ask you these questions, or any questions on your personal statement, just as a warm-up. They're not going to assess you on it. Because like the main point of the interview is to find out how brilliant you are at your subject, and not like, you know, why Oxford. You can tell them I actually don't care about Oxford. And they'll still let you in if you're brilliant at the subject.
Yeah,
so,
because I feel that everyone keeps feeling the need to justify why they want to go in, and they already know that you want to be there. Like, you have paid to take the test, you've, you know, submitted all this stuff and gotten through this far. Yeah, you know, you do want to go to Oxford, so that's kind of like a given there. So for me, I had 2 interviews, and like I said, the first interview was based off my written work that I submitted. So I think it was an economic history professor who interviewed me, and the whole time he was just asking me about certain aspects of the Asian financial crisis, and in particular, a certain angle that he kept pressing on was about the IMF's role, the International Monetary Fund's role in the Asian financial crisis of 1997. So when I wrote the essay, one of the paragraphs that I mentioned was about how the IMF's actions and role in the Asian financial crisis actually exacerbated the initial effects of the Asian financial crisis, because like in Indonesia, the IMF tried to clamp down very heavily on
government tax benefits or like the short term and stuff like that.
Okay, I'm not gonna get too into it, but basically Yan Shen just like
Very interesting.
yeah, basically the IMF, by trying to impose certain aspects of Western liberal capitalism and Western liberal democracies on Southeast Asian countries that had very like hybridized economies and political systems, kind of exacerbated the effects of the crisis. In short, that's a TLDR. So I did rant on a lot about how like westernized institutions were kind of spoiling Southeast Asia with their over-idealized ways of resolving crisis. But they were very nice. They let me ramble on for a really long time, and they seemed to actually be very well humoured by it. So thank you, interviewers at Queen's. My second interview was based on a journal article that they had sent to me a few days prior, and they told me to annotate it and talk about it during my interview. So things to note: definitely read it more than once. Read it as many times as possible, annotate it, write a lot of notes on it. Just, keep thinking about it. Think about it when you go to sleep. Because the way that they will ask you about the article could go both ways, like either in a very like macro point of view where they ask you like for your general conclusions and summaries on the article, which actually is what they asked me as a first question. Like they asked me for my summary of the article and my main takeaways. So I can't really remember what exactly my takeaways were on, but my article was on gossip in the medieval peasantry, which is quite a specific issue. And then afterwards they went and delved deeper into each case study. So for example, when the author of the article was trying to argue a certain point, he would cite a number of case studies in the medieval peasantry which highlighted, like, for example, how important gossip was in swaying public opinion and stuff like that. And so they would narrow in on one of those examples, for example, like some Icelandic peasant and his case that he brought into court or something, and say like, okay, so what do you think this reflects about the society at the time, or of masculinity and how masculinity was perceived at the time? And then I would just have to like kind of roll around with it, even though I didn't think that they would ask such specific questions. So be prepared.
So before delving into my experiences, I'll just like to say that each college has their own way of conducting the interviews, and I think the impact of the diversity of colleges is quite apparent, because because even the number of interviews you get depends on the college. Because in one college I got 3 interviews, and whereas in another college I just got 1 single interview.
Wow.
And the mode in which interviews were conducted are quite different as well. So I should delve more into that. Okay, so basically I think that there are 3 main modes of interview. First is where they let you read a judgment and they ask you questions on it. Second is where they give you a problem, like perhaps a verbal problem, and then you're expected to come up with responses, and you'll develop the problem as you go along. The third one is where they give you a written problem, where they give you a written situation and maybe a set of laws at the side for you to solve. So these are the 3 main ones. So for the first one, where you read the judgment, often you will be given the judgment of either the Court of Appeal or the House of Lords / UK Supreme Court. Just a side note, like the UK Supreme Court and the House of Lords kind of are the same thing. They are the Supreme Court of the land, just that the UK House of Lords kind of was a predecessor of the UK Supreme Court before 2009. So in these courts, there are a few judges, or perhaps in the case of the House of Lords, Law Lords, there are a few judges sitting on the case, and not every one of them has the same opinion. So don't go into like the interview thinking that every single law lord there has the same opinion. Sometimes they dissent, sometimes they agree on the substantial result, but they disagree on the reasoning. Sometimes they do agree on the legal reasoning, but they disagree on the application of facts. So you do need to sieve out the differences in between the laws. But before that, try and summarize the issue, because the case is fundamentally about the story of people. So try and make sure you have a good summary of the facts down before you delve into what are the differences between the laws. But it is suffice to note that the differences in opinion is really quite crucial, because they do highlight, because if they are not, if everyone has the same opinion, they'll just say I agree and not give their own full opinion. So you do need to note that there are differences in opinion, and that I think is the main takeaway from that interview. You will be given about 30 minutes to read the judgment, and it's not simple to read a judgment in depth within 30 minutes. So the easiest way to do it is to try and skim through it to find out what the issue at hand is, who dissented, who agreed with the substantial result, and then you delve into the minute details. I think that would be the easiest way of approaching the case. Sometimes you have a bit, you have irrelevant asides. You can just quickly skim through that. If the issue is procedural, you can just skim through that. It can be practiced. You can try and assess simple judgments on Bailey, B-A-I-L-I-I. It is a repository of free judgment. Usually judgments. You can usually find free Court of Appeal or free Supreme Court cases there. You can also go to the Supreme Court's website to find cases there to read. So that's reading judgment. The second one is a kind of verbal reasoning thing. They will give you a short verbal scenario. For example, a man cycles down the road and knocks an old woman crossing the street. Who should be liable? And then you're going to say, like, either the man's liable or the old woman's liable. And depending on your response, they'll try to tweak the scenario. So for example, if the man travels down the street in a car, in a bicycle, and with him is some corrosive acid, he trips over a stone, and then the acid sprays all over the old woman. Who should be liable? The company, the man, or the old woman? So they keep developing the scenario. I think for that, try to come up with the most commonsensical answer to you. As long as you have a consistent rule throughout, and maybe justified exceptions with those rules, I think you do fine generally with that. But if you find yourself being unable to defend your own rule or your own exceptions to the rule, then I think it might be a good sign that they're trying to tell you that, look, your ideas are incorrect. Maybe it's time for you to approach it in another light. So do take these hints. I think that one you just need perhaps a bit of practice. You can ask a friend or senior to practice with you, or maybe just anyone. Discuss current affairs issue. I think that works the best. The last one is as a written problem. Yes. So usually how this works is that they give you a written scenario and they give you a set of laws to try and apply the scenario to the laws. And the most important thing about this, I mean, you'll be given 30 minutes to read it. The most important thing about this is you should try to read as much as possible the laws, because what I did in my interview was that I actually didn't read the law at the side, because I thought, they're commonsensical, you don't even read it, they're commonsensical. And they weren't commonsensical, and I was called out by the interviewer during the interview to actually read the law. And I was like, okay, yeah, maybe I'll read the law right now. And I was like, no, I want you to read it out to me, like, out loud. And I was like, okay, that's quite humiliating. But I did get it, so, no matter how much you screw up, that's fine. As long as you prove yourself to be teachable, you prove yourself to be intelligent enough to try to adapt to the facts, that's fine. I actually generally do think that that's not too difficult. That the last one is probably one of the less difficult modes of interview amongst the ones I've had. So yeah. Okay.
So actually, on that note, like about screwing up and stuff, because on my second interview, my interviewer asked me, so what is the political orientation of the author of this journal article? And I was like, political orientation? I was like, wait, hold on, wait, what? Like, how am I supposed to like currently bring up in my brain all the different possible types of political orientation and then like decide who this guy is towards? I mean, at the time I also didn't know that probably like 70% of academics are socialists, but also moving on, at the time I just freaked out and I was like, I'm so sorry, but honestly I don't know. And he was like, just make a wild guess, just hazard a wild guess. And I was like, I really don't know, because all I know is that he's writing about the medieval peasantry. So what does that say about him? And I honestly, to the life of me, was just stumped. So he was like, are you sure you don't know? And he was like, nobody so far has gotten this right. And I was like, oh shit, I won't be the model student. I won't be like the star special snowflake person who gets this right. But I was like, I've tried my best. Don't worry, Faith. you tried hard to get into Oxford, next time. And then he was like, oh well, okay, so basically he's a Marxist and he's from like some socialist party in Italy. And I was like, oh, okay. And then so how I like justified it was by saying that in Singapore we have a long history of like one party rule that is like anti-communist, and the presentation of like communism and Marxism in our society is very often caricaturized. Told him that were I to get in, I would definitely read more up about this guy and about like his writings. And then he was like, and I got in, so now I have to go and read about that guy and his writings.
Again, I think it's a bit different in law, because the thing about law is that they actually don't expect you to know anything about the law, which is quite curious because you are ultimately applying for a degree in law. Yeah. So, but the thing is, certain legal concepts certain legal concepts are very nuanced, and Wikipedia or Google might not do them justice, or maybe even case summaries do not do them justice. So they don't actually expect you to know much about the law when you go in. So I think the thing to take away in these interviews is that don't try to use whatever you've learned on the law, but rather try to use common sense to solve problems. Just because ultimately English law is kind of prizes common sense. Because law isn't just for lawyers to use. Law is for everyone to use, businessmen, lay people. So it has to be commonsensical. And quite often the commonsensical answer is the correct one.
Yeah. So I think what we're trying to say is like, don't be too set in what you have accepted to be right in your own mind, or with what your mindset is. I think what they really want to see is a teachability and kind of like an ability to admit that you don't know enough or that you're wrong. Even though you should be prepared, like, don't expect to be completely prepared, because they are professors and they know a lot more than you, and their job is kind of to catch you up on that. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, like even during tutorials today, like I don't think after a lengthy conversation with these students, I don't think I know like the issue 100%. I thought like I knew the issue inside out before I went to tutorials, and after discussions with my tutor, you know that you don't know anything, like you don't know the issue as well as you do. I think that's the point of their existence.
Yeah, it's a bit of a Jon Snow moment.
Yeah.
You know nothing.
Yeah, that's right.
And I think something to know also is that there's a Singapore-Malaysia union. So it's super ironic because Yan Shen knows I joined the Facebook group like even when I was in JC by accident, because a teacher told me that if I wanted more information on how to apply to Oxford, I should join the group. So I like cluelessly joined the group, and everyone in the group was like, "Hi guys, welcome back to Trinity term. Like, who wants some drinks?" And I was like, So I mean, if you have questions, feel free to let us know down in the comments. Or
this is going to YouTube?
Yes. So down in the comments, or we can try to make another video next time about different experiences, including like CC experiences.
Oh yeah.
You did mention you were in rowing and can't play a trumpet, whereas I, on the other hand. Well, okay, yeah. So
you dye your hair.
A dyeing hair group. It's like a young
young
punks of
society,
Oxford.
yeah.
Right. Okay. Anyways, so I think that's pretty much it for the whole like application thing, as well as like the little bit of nitty-gritty details on how Oxford kind of works in terms of applications. I do think very much that a lot of admissions is a lot of myths and a lot of like big scary terms and jargon that people are using that people who are new to this whole admission cycle may not understand. So if you do have such questions, just let us know, and maybe we can do a whole new video on breaking down everything for you. That said, I strongly do not believe in spoon feeding, and so if you guys are really interested, please do go and like check out all the links that I will be putting down in the description box for yourself, and really go and like research as much as possible. Firstly, on why you want to go to Oxford, and secondly, what course you want to do, things like that. It's not for everybody. Law isn't for everybody, nor is history, and that's really your choice to make. Really go and explore all the options and see what you really, really want to do with like the next 10 years of your life. So if that's it, thank you so much, Yan Shen, for being here and for
worries.
humoring me. Yeah, you will be like flying back in September, right?
I will be flying.
Yes, maybe you can take a vlog for us.
Yeah, that'd be a good
of
idea,
student life in Oxford. No promises though. So we'll see you guys next time, and remember to like and subscribe to my channel. Bye. Oof. Okay.